I got to tell you, this one was a blast to put together. Coming up, we tell the incredible, outrageous stories of 5 acts that were legendary for being downright awful, lousy. Yet they managed to become cult heroes. I mean, some people actually worship them, including some true legends of music. So there's a story of 3 sisters who were forced to be a trio by their domineering father because his mother did a palm reading and saw the future that his daughters would be huge stars. They hated every second of it, and they were so bad they got stuff thrown at them when they performed, but they became one of the most influential bands of their time. And then there was the artist that was so bad, people actually paid top dollar just to make fun of her in concert. Plus the terrible novelty cowboy that inspired David Bowie to create Ziggy Stardust, as well as a shock singer who actually died while performing his dreadful signature song. Truly creepy. The 5 worst acts of the rock era is coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time, except for today. If you remember this from the Super Friends cartoon...
He tries to stop me! Destroy Robin!
You're going to dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now. You'll find something to like on this channel. Also, make sure to check out our podcast on Apple and Spotify, wherever you get your stuff. All right, I truly believe you're going to love this episode. It was so fun putting together. I've got the 5 worst acts in music history. Now, when I say worst bands or worst artists in history, some might be thinking Nickelback or Rick Dees and his cast of idiots or even Creed. But that's all subjective. One man's trash is another man's treasure. But today, we count down musical acts that pretty much everyone collectively agrees were just awful. And even in their awfulness, they were influential, though. I mean, I guarantee you, in the comment section, there's not going to be one person that's going to disagree with any of these being truly awful, truly bad. But it's like a cult film. It's so bad, it's good. That's where we're at here. All right, let's get into it. All right, coming in at number 5, the episode unfolds in the hush of Fremont, New Hampshire, a population of less than 4,000 people when our story actually began. In that small town, there lived a father by the name of Austin Wiggin. He measured the world in rules and rhythms. He could hear a harmony in the air that others never noticed, a stubborn drum beat that only he seemed to understand, and you'll see what I mean coming up. He believed every family should have a stage, if not a spotlight, and he was determined to grant his daughters their moment in the sun, whether or not they asked for it or even wanted it. This is the bizarre, strange story of the Shaggs, one of the worst acts of the rock era. Austin Wiggin believed wholeheartedly in his mother's strange prophecy that his daughters, Helen, Betty, and Dot, that they would become stars. His mother had read his palm when he was a little boy and told him 3 things. First thing is she told him is that he would marry a strawberry blonde-haired woman. Second thing she told him that he would have 2 sons after she had died, and 3, that he would have 3 daughters and they would perform in a popular band. Now, when the first 2 predictions came true, Austin made it his life's goal to make their 3rd one a reality. In fact, he would sometimes have his family hold seances to try and communicate with his dead mother. Now, later on, his daughters would say that they thought he was totally nuts, but they didn't say anything. I mean, this was the 60s. It was a little different back then. They also didn't want to insult their grandmother, their dead grandmother. It was also said that their father, Austin, had no interest in music, and he'd only created the band to make that 3rd prediction come to fruition. And despite the family having no musical lineage and the girls never demonstrating any musical talent at all or really any interest in it at all.
With me, I don't have time to roam. I have things to do.
Okay, so it started to get really crazy when Austin pulled his daughters out of public school, insisting they practice every single day. Some even say that he locked them in a room and forced them to practice or learn songs or write songs. He didn't care. He wanted them to be famous. And then he staged performances for them at the Fremont Town Hall to hone their craft, in front of a crowd of their peers who were there to ridicule them. It didn't go well. They were like a lobotomized Van Trapp singers group, as one would say.
And the skinny people want what the fat people got.
Now, Dot was the primary writer of the songs, and the songs spoke of not belonging. They spoke of parental control, strict home life, and the edges of daily existence. There was even a song about their cat, Foot. Yeah. His name was Foot, and he was always lost.
My pal's name is Foot, he always likes to roam.
Musically, they forged an offbeat, unrehearsed sound that was jagged and intentionally imperfect.
Foot, I never find him home. I
That vision found his first home when Austin Wiggin tapped into the family savings to pay for Philosophy of the World, the album that came out in '69, their debut record. Austin actually hired session musicians to help his daughters play their songs in the most professional way in the studio, but the sisters' timing was so off, the hired players, they were just unable to follow them at all.
Oh, the rich people want what the poor people got.
Despite the album being erratic and even unlistenable in spots, they managed to finish it somehow. And then Austin made a deal with Charlie Dreyer, an engineer who worked at Fleetwood Studios in Revere, Massachusetts, where the Shaggs recorded that album. Austin paid Dreyer to deliver 1,000 copies of the record. Dreyer released only 100 copies of the album, and then he vanished with the remaining 900. Now, Dot claimed Dreyer had stolen their father's money and could not be traced after. Music executive Harry Palmer offered a different account, though. Dreyer said Austin refused to distribute the extra copies to avoid letting someone copy the Shaggs' music. I don't think there was that worry, especially back then. Palmer added that Dreyer kept boxes of the records in the studio and handed them out to anyone who asked for it. Journalists doubted the theft angle at all, noting that the records were virtually worthless at that time. With Philosophy of the World receiving little to no media attention, the Shaggs actually returned to performing locally.
And that's all people want, but the shopkeepers got.
The Shaggs drew a mixed response during their late 1960s run. I mean, there was laughter and heckling, along with people throwing things at them, but that was intermingled with moments of genuine curiosity. Some audiences listened closely and kind of liked what they heard. Their outsider approach, their unconventional harmonies, and often out-of-tune playing puzzled many, even as a devoted fan base slowly formed, though.
And the boys with motorcycles gone past.
One early show in the 1970s at, the Fremont Town Hall left a promoter astonished to see local kids dancing to the music despite the widespread ridicule that was going on. It was like half the audience was with them, half wasn't. Then years later, when that same promoter asked Austin Wiggin whether the laughter was a problem, the reply carried quiet resignation. Now, at the shows they played at the town hall in Fremont, crowds sometimes showered the stage with garbage, throwing things at them. But then some danced. And some talked through the performances while the girls carried on, trying not to let it bother them. It was really strange because the audience dismissed them, at least artistically, but they seemed to admire them in a strange contradictory way. These gigs, they were infamous for that. They're just all over the place. Critics called the Shaggs' music hauntingly bad. One fan famously vowed he would walk across the desert while eating charcoal briquettes soaked in Tabasco, not to ever have to listen to anything Shaggs related again. I don't know how you'd call him a fan. But in 1975, Austin Wiggin died of a massive heart attack at just 47, leaving the band without his controlling force. The sisters soon sold most of their gear, and they felt relief at their dad's passing, having grown weary of his strict daily regime. As adults, Dot, Betty, and Helen admitted they never truly wanted to be musicians and often found their performances very embarrassing and trying. Finally released from the chains of their father's control, they pursued the lives that they totally envisioned. Dot and Betty married, and they moved out while all three took on blue-collar jobs to support their families. As the Shaggs story spread to cult status, though, listeners and critics began reevaluating this music, recognizing it not as a joke, but as a distinctive form of music for outcasts. Prominent fans included Frank Zappa and, of course, Kurt Cobain. Zappa, who is one of the most unconventional artists of all time, admired the Shaggs because they were so unabashedly different.
Why can't I find you? Foot, where can you be?
And then Kurt Cobain called Philosophy of the World one of his favorite albums ever. He loved them. The Wiggin sisters reunited as the Shaggs to play a few shows together in 1999 and 2017. Now, they never made any money from their one and only studio album, but that one album was, in my opinion, kind of a work of unintentional brilliance. The title track, Philosophy of the World, it's so innocent. It's how we all thought about life as young people. The lyrics are, oh, what the rich people want, the poor people's got, and the poor people want what the rich people's got.
And the poor people want what the rich people's got.
And the skinny people want what the fat people's got, and the fat people want what the skinny people's got. You can never please anybody in this world. How true that is.
And the fat people want what the skinny people's got.
This is truly innocent music from three young girls who had absolutely no guile. No guile. I mean, like I said, they're the only band in the history of the world who wrote a song about their cat Foot, who always gets lost, and they did this because they were really worried about their cat. They didn't write the song to be ironic or funny. They just wrote about their life, forced to create music, and that's how they did it. They wrote a song called Who Are Parents? Some kids do as they please. They don't know what life really means. They don't listen to what the ones who really care have to say. They just go and do things their own way. Who are parents? Parents are the ones who really care. Who are parents? Parents are the ones who are always there. I mean, if that doesn't sound like a 12-year-old's creative writing project, I don't know what does. And to think they wrote this about their dad, one of their parents, who was absolutely horrible to them. These were good, wholesome kids making music out of necessity, doing their very best with no real talent. Failing miserably, but it's so bad, it's actually kind of good.
Then they start turning from the ones who really care.
I mean, how rock and roll is it not to have a bassist, but to have two guitars? I mean, they would later have a bassist. One of their other sisters came into the band. Long live the Shaggs is all I can say. By the way, they were named after the Disney movie, The Shaggy Dog, and the popular hairstyle.
Pop,
Yes, Wilby.
I've got something to tell you.
And some have given them credit for being the big bang of grunge, the start of grunge, since Kurt Cobain worshipped them. So I want to take a moment and mention today's sponsor. You know that one guy in the friend group who hit a crazy 5-leg parlay week 1 and wouldn't stop bragging about it the rest of the season? Yeah, that guy could be you with MyBookie. MyBookie makes it insanely easy to get in on the action. College ball, NFL, super contests, and survivor pools, you name it. All the spreads, player props, and in-game lines you can want all under one roof. And if you're new to MyBookie, you get a little extra juice. Check this out. Use our code ROCK, R-O-C-K, and any bet you choose up to $500 is fully covered. Make your play, and if it doesn't hit, you get it right back when you opt in using your Bet Back bonus token. No better time to jump in, no better place to play. Football's back. Let's make some money with MyBookie. All right, coming in at number 4 in our worst acts of the rock era countdown, Tiny Tim. Remember Tiny Tim? For those who have never heard of him, Tiny Tim with his translucent ukulele and a voice that seemed to float between a whisper and a warble, he arrived on the mid-century stage like a curious postcard from another planet. His oversized suit, the bowler hat tipped at a jaunty angle, and that shilling falsetto that was about as appealing to me as nails on a chalkboard. Though Tiny Tim had a solid natural baritone, his fame rested on his high quivering falsetto, a sound that many found unsettling, truly creepy, including me. Now, some people, including aficionados of Hawaiian falsetto, saw it as a mockery. The association of his falsetto with Tiptoe Through the Tulips has also given the voice a creepy edge in contemporary horror films, especially for younger, hip audiences, I guess. Memes on Instagram and TikTok. It's actually made Tiptoe Through the Tulips one of the most used songs of this time. It's crazy. It's interesting. Tiny Tim, he stood out like a walking contradiction, a revivalist act in the rock era, delivering strange old-time tunes with a gentle, almost ceremonial courtesy. He had long, shaggy hair and a meticulously antique wardrobe that made him instantly recognizable and endlessly perplexing. Audiences wrestled with a lingering question here. Was this all a joke, or was he for real? The tension between performance and persona fed both fascination and discomfort as he performed with earnest conviction. Like him or not, I'll say this about Tiny Tim, he was a trooper. Even after his peak commercial fame in the late 60s, after it long faded, Tim never stopped performing. He continued to tour and record for decades, which was a testament to his dedication as an entertainer. He loved it. Tiny Tiny Tim had a long history of heart problems, yet he pressed on with his music, truly believing it to be his life's work. So in September of 1996, he suffered a heart attack on stage at a Massachusetts ukulele festival, and he spent several weeks in the hospital. After his initial hospitalization, doctors released him, but they had strict orders for him, strict warning, to stop performing due to heart and diabetes-related risks. Tim's last performance was during a benefit at the Women's Club of Minneapolis on November 30th of 96, just a few months after. An hour before his performance, he told his wife that he wasn't feeling very well. When he went on stage, he looked like he was kind of struggling, but he wanted to perform for his fans and fulfill the commitment that he had made to the organizers. He managed to get through his signature tiptoe through the tulips, but just a few minutes later, he actually collapsed on stage and he was immediately rushed to the hospital, but he was pronounced dead on arrival. Tiny Tim had died of a heart attack, the very heart attack the doctors had warned him about, but he wanted to continue performing. But he died doing what he loved to do. Disregarding all credible medical advice, he was 64 years old. He still has one of the creepiest, most frightening voices ever. Am I wrong? So another awful act that came out of the 60s that made our list of the top 5 worst acts of the rock era is Elva Ruby Miller. This is a good one.
There you can forget all your troubles, forget all your cares.
Known as Mrs. Miller. Mrs. Miller was a 60s housewife who turned accidental pop culture fame into a quirky kind of legend with her off-key vibrato heavy renditions of well-known songs. Her appeal came from a distinctive, untrained charm and a sense of comedy that was all her own, not from recording a track titled Why It's Fascinating.
This night, I should be sleeping like a log, strangers in the night, two lonely people.
Elva Ruby Cons, born in 1907, was a California suburban housewife who started making private recordings of classical hymns. She did it for fun, but those little home tapes somehow found their way to Capitol Records executive Lex de Acevedo. He saw something sparkly and odd in her, and he signed her as a novelty act to the label. In 1966, at 59 years of age, Capitol released Mrs. Miller's Greatest Hits, unleashing her quirky takes on pop songs like Downtown and A Lover's Concerto.
Downtown, no finer place for sure. Downtown above made this day for us just to fall in love.
Actually, her version of Downtown even cracked the Billboard Hot 100, which blew the doors open to a flurry of TV appearances.
Downtown, waiting for you tonight, downtown.
There's the Hollywood Palace with Jimmy Durante among them. There's also a USO tour in Vietnam. But after a couple more Capitol albums, public interest cooled dramatically. She was dropped from the label in 1968, just as fast as she was signed. Mrs. Miller kept making music for a while on small labels before quietly retiring in 1973. She stayed in California and helped local charities and passed away in 1997. But since then, her place in the annals has been reassessed. I mean, was she a brave underdog in on the joke, or just simply oblivious to how bad she really was?
Just like you, and needs a gentle hand to guide them along.
Now, you can find most of her stuff on YouTube, but her music was so awful, it's been said to have been banned by several radio stations and at least one country, and you can't find her original Capitol albums anywhere online, save for a compilation album on Spotify. But the story of Mrs. Miller endures as a quietly strange slice of music history where Capitol signed an awful artist who actually had a hit out of it. That's happened a lot.
Everything's waiting for you.
All right, coming in at the bridesmaid position, the coveted number 2 spot of the worst acts ever, we've got the unlistenable Florence Foster Jenkins. If you haven't heard of her, don't feel too bad. Florence Foster Jenkins was a wealthy American socialite and an amateur soprano who became famous for her famously bad singing. She had no sense of rhythm, no sense of tone or pitch, yet she was utterly convinced of her own talent and still performed to sold-out crowds in New York City. People loved the mix of social curiosity and genuine admiration for her unwavering self-confidence. So what made her unlistenable? Her singing was riddled with technical flaws, turning each performance into a bizarre, almost comical spectacle for listeners every time out. Florence often couldn't sing in tune or keep time with her pianist, drifting strikingly off key as she went along. Critics described her singing as a cacophony of squawks and speeches, which was exactly right on. Her live performances were like a skit on Saturday Night Live. She lacked breath control, so her voice would wobble and fade mid-note. And her diction wasn't much better, especially with foreign lyrics in German or Italian. It was like a train wreck, which many listeners found barely comprehensible. Now, health-wise, there's a long-standing belief that untreated syphilis from her first husband, that contributed to vocal and hearing problems. That era's harsh treatments of the disease, which were mercury and arsenic, it could have caused nerve damage and tinnitus, making it even harder for her to hear herself sing accurately, so that was part of the problem. One time after getting into a taxi, she got into a fender bender with another car. Jenkins let out this incredibly high-pitched scream. When she got home, she rushed to the piano and insisted to herself that the scream had been the legendary F above high C, something she'd never hit before. Florence was so overjoyed that she hit that elusive note, she chose not to press charges against the cab company, and she even sent the taxi driver a box of expensive cigars. So Lady Florence, as she liked to be called, perhaps what stood out most about her was her unwavering belief that she was a truly great artist. It was a conviction that she clung to right up to her final, highly scrutinized Carnegie Hall concert. I'm not making this up. At 76, Jenkins finally gave in to the public demand to see her and booked Carnegie Hall for a general admission show. It happened on October 25th, 1944. Tickets were sold out weeks in advance, and about 2,000 people were turned away from the 2,800-seat venue. It was like the hottest ticket of the year. So when she sang the line, "If my silhouette does not convince you yet, my figure surely will," from Adele's aria in Die Fledermaus, she put her hands on her hips and she launched into this like circular, clumsy dance that attendees remembered as the most ridiculous thing that they had ever seen. The uproar was so hysterical inside the theater that one famous actress in the audience had to be carried out of her box because she could not control her laughter. She was dying. Lady Florence, she actually passed away about a month after that infamous performance at Carnegie Hall. Now, in 2016, a biopic about her strange career was released titled Florence Foster Jenkins, starring Hugh Grant and Meryl Streep as Lady Florence.
She's remarkable, isn't she?
All right, it's time to reveal the number one spot on our 5 worst acts of the rock era. And even though these acts essentially stunk it up, with no artistic merit, no pizzazz, and essentially no talent, they had an incredible influence on many rock icons. A great example of that influence is my number 1 pick today, Nickelback.
Look at this photograph.
Just kidding. I meant to say the legendary Stardust, Norman Carl Odom, better known as the legendary Stardust Cowboy. He's a real-life American outsider musician from Lubbock, Texas, who helped pioneer the subgenre of psychobilly and actually heavily influenced David Bowie's Ziggy Stardust persona.
Now Ziggy played guitar.
His 1968 cult hit, Paralyzed, put him on the map, opening up TV appearances and launching a quirky career built on a playful mix of Western motifs and space travel imagery. Paralyzed was a chaotic avant-garde track that dives headfirst into wild vocalizations, primal yells, and a breakneck arrangement. Norman wrote the song about a cheerleader he knew in Lubbock that left him paralyzed. Not literally, of course, but he was obviously really into her. His singing is a jumble of like growls, snarls, and spurts that often come out slurred, almost unintelligible, with the shouted title popping up, now and again throughout the song. The guitar jumps frenetically, and the drumming at T-Bone Burnett rages behind it. And there's a horn-like bugle solo that's become instantly recognizable from this one. Yeah, that's the same T-Bone Burnett that would later become a highly respected musician and producer who worked with the likes of Robert Plant, Alison Krauss, and Elvis Costello, among many others. Paralyze was one of the first things that T-Bone did that got any kind of national spotlight. He was only 21 years of age when he played on the record with the legendary Stardust Cowboy anyway. In an interview in 1986, T-Bone said that he beat the heck out of those drums on the recording of Paralyzed. After the quirky recording was done, T-Bone took the tape to a local radio station. The program director loved this strange sound that he was hearing. He thought it would be a noisemaker that would make listeners call the station to find out exactly who the hell this band or guy was. So T-Bone, he pressed 500 copies of the single on Norman's own Psycho Suave label, before it was picked up nationally by Mercury Records, that is. Norman's act, it was so unbelievably bad. He actually made an appearance singing Paralyzed on the comedy show Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In. Again, so viewers could laugh at how just horrendous it really was. But you know what? There was one future legend who truly admired the Stardust Cowboy. It influenced his career dramatically. David Bowie. He thought it was really cool for what he called his laugh of love. Plus that definite outsider sound and sincerity. The sincerity in his art that stood apart from mainstream music of the time. That spirit helped shape Bowie's own approach, so much so that he borrowed the Stardust identity for Ziggy Stardust. Hell, he even covered the Cowboys tune "I Took a Trip on a Gemini Spaceship" on his Heathen album.
I took a trip in a Gemini spacecraft.
Took a trip on a Gemini spacecraft.
Now, after his appearance on Laugh-In, the legendary Stardust Cowboy steadily faded from any mainstream attention. Still, he built a loyal cult following. He endured a bunch of fans that stuck with him even after the novelty wore off, making him a quintessential cult artist. Norman Carl Odom, the legendary Stardust Cowboy, outlived his ardent fan David Bowie. He's actually still around in 2025. He lives in San Jose, California. He keeps performing with his band, the Ultimate Boys, occasionally puts out new music and stays connected to his lifelong fascination with space. So that wraps up our episode of the 5 worst acts of the rock era. They were indeed awful to listen to. I mean, some of these guys had a strange genius, you have to admit, or a strange eccentricity. And of course, it attracted a cult following. It influenced legends, even a major motion picture release. Actually, the Shaggs story may someday be a movie as well. The rights to a popular New Yorker story that was written on them was purchased by Tom Cruise and his partner Paula Wagner. That was quite a while ago. I think it would make a great movie. I'd watch it. What do you think? Let me know below. What do you think are the 5 worst acts in history? I mean, I couldn't throw out a Nickelback or some of these other bands because that's very subjective. But I like the Shaggs. What do you think? Do you like the Shaggs? I think I wouldn't listen to them necessarily I listened to them for fun. I mean, it's just kind of fascinating. Anyway, let's have a great discussion below. You tell me what your 5 are. Do you know any of these? What are some I missed? Should we do a part 2? Let me know. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. Till next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.